So now we've got some discussions here around some painting and so a new IT system and some funding for QEYC. So hand over to Chad to lead this.
Cool. Kia ora koutou. Thanks, me mahe. I think we'll keep this relatively brief. I know you guys have had a big day and a few things to work your way through. You've got a lot of information sitting in front of you. I will say that we are very aware of the pressure that council is under in terms of its financial position and trying to make budgets stack up. So just wanted to make that kind of clear. These are items that had been previously raised, so I think the timing's probably not great in terms of where it's coming to you now. I do want to note that we have withdrawn $234,000 worth of requests that we had previously signalled. We've figured out that we'll just swallow those and get on with it. We have done quite a lot of hard work with yourselves as well to try and get to a break-even budget position. That includes looking at user fees, levels of service. We've also done things like making sure that our remuneration increase for our staff will be sitting at a 2% level, so we've held that back and we are operating incredibly lean. We've already accepted that there's a nil increase off the back of, we had an 8.5% decrease to our subsidy last year, so we appreciate that it's a challenging environment and we've been working hard to fit with that. These three items, two of them were previously budgeted, and the budgeting for those two that were budgeted goes back to the last LTP, so we've got some historical things that we probably need to correct next time round, and we have had a process for managing that with council over the last couple of years, but they are business as usual things, one of which is the painting, which is around looking after our existing facilities. The second one is around our leisure management system, which isn't as fun as it sounds, I'll just note. It is one of our core operating systems. That's how we process all of our transactions through our indoor sports facilities, swimming pools, gyms, things like that, so it keeps track of the money. It's a bit probably like council's rating system, very important to us. It's about 6 or 7 years old and it's end of life. It will no longer be supported, so we do need to replace that. It's not a new system, it'll be a replacement of the old system, which is no longer fit for purpose for us. And then finally, the other item which hadn't been budgeted was resulting from council's decision to keep QEYC. We now know the actual costs of keeping QEYC open alongside Homeru. There's some numbers in there on that, but just wanted to, I guess, highlight that those are where things are at, but appreciating that it's a challenging environment for council at the moment. Happy to take any questions on that.
Yeah, just on the painting, I'm just interested as to how that's kind of come about. Is that just purely from that change in accounting model?
Yeah, I believe so, going back historically. So we had always traditionally had painting as a renewals item, and then over the last few years we've had a process with council to move that money across. Moving forward with the next LTP, we acknowledge that we need to shift that. So we're trying to just be consistent with council's accounting policy, making sure we're getting that right.
Yeah, Councillor Baker.
Geez, on fire this afternoon. Must have been the coffee. Okay. Can someone... Thank you guys for coming. I don't understand platforms and tech all that well. So that leisure management system, one of our many platforms that we use to do finance management-y type stuff, can they provide the same service as that? Can we share a platform? Can they share one of our existing platforms is probably the first question I have for someone.
Thank you for that question. Good question. We had asked that question, or wondered if that question might get asked, and the answer is no. It's doing a very different thing. It runs gym memberships, it's learn to swim management, as well as processing, like I say, transactions for people going in to use the pools. So yeah, it's quite a bespoke system for the range of different business units that we have.
All right, cool, thank you. And the QEYC ongoing operations costs, how detrimental to BVL as an organisation would it be if QEYC wasn't on your books?
And is that a financial question, or is that more around from a community response? 'Cause I think there's
Financial.
financial. Well, effectively, we're managing the facilities on behalf of council. There's a cost to do that. Financially, whether it was in or out, it wouldn't make any difference because we just cover the cost of doing that.
Yeah, Councillor Taylor.
Just going back a little bit to the leisure system. These days there seem to be a charge by the byte type.
Software as a service.
Yeah,
Yep.
so is this one of those, and what's the ongoing OPEX on that?
Yeah, so this is a software as a service conversation. This is what's happened traditionally, and this is, I think, the last of the systems that we have that was kept on premise with servers that sat in the building, and that's why it was a capital cost. Now it's all in the cloud, so that is the shift that's happening here. I think the ongoing costs, I'll check with Adam on that one.
Yeah, so the ongoing costs are about 80,000 a year, but we're absorbing that cost in our existing budgets, so we're not asking for any funding to cover that. It's just the implementation.
Yep, Councillor Morris.
Hey, thank you. At the risk of sounding repetitive, who's the miracle worker here? So to approve this, we've got to go from finding 4.6 million to 5.2. Who's going to find it? Chad or Marty? Excuse the first names, by the way.
4.6 to 5, you've got how tapu maths?
No, 5.2.
380k.
378.
Oh, that hurts.
I haven't turned my mind to this one at this stage, so
Councillor Crowther.
I'll ask a question while the Chief Executive really puts his mind to it and finds the magic. But I just wanted to check, I think I know the answer, but just because it seems a bit important, the drowning prevention software, have you in any way compromised the drowning prevention side of things? I presume the answer is no, but I just wanted sort of reassurance on that.
Correct. No, we have implemented that system at Baywave and Greerton. That's up and running. The operational costs of that we have already absorbed and accounted for in our budget, so that's why we're not asking for the extra funding for that.
Yes, Councillor Correct.
In the context of reading an email in a little gap that we had before regarding hardship out there in the community and people living week to week, and 17% apparently of people have dropped their home insurance to afford to pay their rates, etc. And you mentioned that you're limiting your wage increases to 2%. For those people living week to week, and I can imagine, you know, quite a number of your employees will be at the lower end of the income spectrum. Have you looked at other options instead in terms of achieving a budget saving? If you know where I'm coming from, we're talking about people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, just to assure you, we have been through this. This is probably the third year in a row now where we have been through our budgets with a fine-tooth comb. We have basically turned over every rock 3 times. We've been looking for the spare change down the back of the couch. We've done everything that we reasonably can without putting ourselves at risk in terms of cutting levels of service and things like that. So, I back ourselves 100% that we've done that thoroughly. We've been pushed by our board and checked on that on every step of the way as well. So, yeah, we're confident we've done everything that we can, and that was kind of the last resort that we could look at to make sure that we could balance our budget.
Yeah, Councillor Morris.
My numeralexy side, I regularly ring the wrong people because I put the wrong numbers into the phone from time to time. But I did mean 4.95. It just didn't come out of my mouth that way. Anyway, that being said, professional board, professional executive, you must have a plan B for if this funding's not approved, and you mentioned level of service, what does that look like?
Well, I think we've already been through levels of service with you. We would need to look at further reductions to that, which we'd need to go away and have a look at.
Right. Any other questions? Thank you very much for your time. If we've got any rabbits in the hat on this one, happy just to have a little discussion as to our way forward. I see we've, Councillor Crowther has proposed a couple of amendments on the TBOP resolution around what we've discussed. If people just want to have a look at that, we can add that to the discussion. Don't think we've, yeah, Councillor.
I'm happy to move if I had a seconder as it is, and
I am happy to second.
and then take on these discussions. Or do we need to follow?
Well,
that
I think we just have a discussion, just sort of get where we're going to have support, rather than go through an amendment process. So yeah, Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, I put that through. It's not trying to preempt what the decisions would be on the actual amounts that we would allocate for tourism Bay Plenty funding. So that can be a sort of almost a separate component of it. But the structure of it was just to put a sort of straw man replacement resolution, which incorporates, I guess, a couple of things. One is whatever, whether it's anywhere from 0 to 450,000 that we allocate for the brand project, if it's more than 0, that we fund it through the airport activity funding, subject to anything Craig might say that is, means that it can't. But my understanding is we've got $650,000 per year that was going to be allocated to Te Manawataki o Te Papa, that, if my memory serves me, is now no longer going to be going there. But I can let staff correct that. And then the other essence of this amendment was, again, whatever amount we choose for the kiosks, whether it's 93 or 50,000 or anything more than 0, that would have. That was the main other one. I won't belabor that. The main other one was just that the Te Manawataki o Te Papa eyesight fit out be loan funded using part of projected Te Manawataki o Te Papa project contingency as per the Mayor's suggestion. So I just thought, if rather than kind of have to redo it through an amendment process, whoever wants to move the amounts could maybe, if they agree, incorporate that structure to it, and then we can debate the actual amounts.
So basically, it's saying that the place brand is funded through the airport, and the fit out at Te Manawataki is funded through contingency at Te Manawataki. So that's what that's doing, is effectively taking down the rates impact of those decisions if we're amenable to doing them. There would still be a rates impact of. Sorry, Craig, can you give us the numbers from, was it 378, was it from? 380 for BVL. Yeah, 380 from BVL. And then what would that leave us, the 90, up to 90 on the kiosk, plus the mobile, which again we...
Well, I think we could look at how those activities could be funded, and we can come back, and obviously we take a reasonably conservative approach to this, to try and protect, if you like, our interest in the airport. But we could report back. It may be that digital stuff, the kiosk stuff, may also be included. But
yeah. So, I was very against the car parks debt being used at the airport reserve, and then that was really just trying to hide it. In this case, the place brand, potentially the digital kiosk, I can see the real direct link, that has a direct benefit to the airport, and so I'm quite comfortable with that. obviously with the discussions this morning. My personal view is, the requests from BVL are fairly reasonable. We've kept the budgets tight, and again, looking after what we've got is important. And painting is just routine maintenance, so we can always push that stuff out. But you're literally just it's got to be done at some point. And as most people should understand, painting is often cheaper when you do it before it needs to be done. Once the paint is flaking, it ends up being a lot more preparation. And so there is I'm assuming that these are very much at the end of their life and they need to be done. But so I've been very critical of cost savings, but I do believe these are reasonable requests and do follow our principles. I think there's some wins there from the way that we fund them. So I guess going back to Councillor.
Yeah, so just to discuss, having read now Councillor Crowther's, sorry for where my bugs come from, brand project to be funded via the airport funding activity. Just around the table while we're still discussing, I would prefer we gave staff the flexibility to look at that and/or loan funding, and just really to work that out in the best way possible for the outcome. So I understand the tourism only element, the airport only element, but I think this, particularly if you look at what's happening from Tourism Bay of Plenty, what's happening, if we do approve this, this is something that's going to be massively beneficial into the future, and the future generations and people will be benefiting from it. So I think if the flexibility helps us get it across the line, I would like to see Councillor Crowther's, and where appropriate, anything else connected around tourism and growth and that, to have an option of loan funding as well.
Loan funding or?
Well, look, another option is that, depending on how the next month or two go for council, it may be that there are some operational budgets within our organisation that could actually serve the purposes of BVL, and we could potentially report back and at that point transfer that across.
All right, so Councillor Schuler, you'd be happy to move effectively the recommendations as they are, adding in that we'll fund the place brand from airport reserves as per Councillor Crowther's amendment, and we'll fund the fit out from the Te Manautaki contingency, and then maybe we need a final resolution to ask staff to report back on ways to fund or savings to be able to not affect the rates on the other. Yeah. The digital kiosks, do we want to do that out of Airport Reserve? Okay, so we can, I think if we can do Craig's got some.
I was just going to add to that by saying, if you agree the amounts that you're happy to sign off, we'll optimise the outcome in a funding sense and to protect rates.
Okay. So I think we should have a resolution in around that.
Can we also look at what we could support the Mount with out of that same fund? Is there a way we can think about that?
If I'm the mover, depends. I think we should get, I would certainly support a discussion around that or a debate around that as part of this, and that money going to Tourism Bay of Plenty as well. There's 10 of us in the room. I think it would be a very good thing to have a quick debate on. And
what's that? The
if
Mount?
There was an option for something that we could
I think we need, that's a separate, we can't consider that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, is it though, Mayor? Because we are talking about this as a, we're saying we've done some brand work, which is for innovating Tauranga and the region. We are looking at over $1 million support in the next 3 years. We've got a community that we said we listened to last night who are really hurting, who have put a proposal in terms of some activations, and within the TCC team, we've said we're going to do some activations. If we've got Tourism Bay of Plenty who's got capability to do such activations, I think it's a really good opportunity that we could say that to Tourism Bay of Plenty that we also would like you to look at how you might activate particularly the Mount, particularly if it can come out of airport funding because it's getting people here as part of, I'm sure, well, I would think they might be able to absorb that into some of the work they're doing in developing the brand as activating and being able to combine that sort of stuff. So I think it would be a great thing to be able to kill two birds with one stone, I said, yes.
Yeah, I think it's out of scope. We don't have the options. We don't know what we're asking them to do. We don't have any detail around, what's being asked. So I don't think it's good governance to just chuck some money at them and say, go use it for activation without...
And I wasn't chucking money. I was going to put some rules of... I'm with Moto.
Yeah.
Beaten up by the mayor today.
Well, I think we just, I absolutely agree with the discussion and the consideration. I just think we need to see what the options are and actually make a conscious decision on it. So
could we just have as an action that while the staff are looking at the airport reserve, they also consider whether there might be an opportunity in the next few weeks to consider whether the support of the Mount might come from a similar channel.
Yep, I think that can be an
All right.
action. Councillor Crowthers.
I personally think that's a better way of doing it, but I would suggest that to keep that in mind as we figure out the allocation. I know there'll be views in the room to sort of just allocate full amounts, might be views in the room to allocate nothing, but for myself, I think, and I presume we can sort of have some of the discussion now on it, that I sort of look at each of these things as a separate issue. I agree with the BVL. I think that's probably just good standard practice to move forward with it. In terms of the T-Bot ones, I guess there are sort of 4 separate things. I think the eyesight at Te Manawataki o Te Papa seems quite important, and I think it was an effort to keep the original estimate or budget down, and if not an oversight. So I think it's great to sort of do it through as part of that project expenditure. So that's to me a tick. The mobile one, I think it's great to get it when you get it 50-50 funded with the government. So I personally think that's good. But the other 2, I guess I'm just aware that there is kind of a bit of a there's a waiting to be made, irrespective of which bundle of money we get it from. Ultimately, that bundle of money would benefit our city and its ratepayers in some way or other. And the Deputy Mayor has raised one possibility for that. It seems quite relevant. And I guess my personal view is that when it comes to, we talk about, we'd have all these events without a brand. We actually have a brand. We have a brand that went through a significant branding expenditure, which is Bay of Plenty NZ. Now, I'm aware that there is definitely a lot of people in this room, I'm sure, but also people in the city who have been involved in this project. But when you get outside the sort of the Beltway, then people still talk about the Bay. They still talk about the rugby teams, the Bay of Plenty rugby team here, all that. So it's not like we won't have a brand. We won't have a brand featuring Tauranga as the word in it, but it certainly features incredibly strongly in that brand. So I'm not against the brand, and I do feel that the biggest concern for me is that someone in Makatu feels just as bought in as in Mount Maunganui or Te Maraka as in Otamotai. And I think that could well happen. But to me, when I look at the allocations of money, I have to weigh it all up, and I personally would be far more comfortable with something like $250,000 or whatever the lower figure to actually to say, right, let's not really stop the progress, but actually do it on a tight budget this year. So that's where I would be favouring, is that we take that middle ground. We don't say zero, but we don't give close to the $500,000, because I think there are other things that would benefit a lot from that in the longer term. So, and I would want to see that brand before I go anywhere near that higher amount.
Yeah, so
Sorry,
You're-
sounds like we were.
you're happy
I thought,
with
I thought we're having the discussion.
yeah, you're happy
Yeah,
with
but
it.
sounds like we just debated a move, something we haven't moved yet.
Yeah, so, but
So
we
that
were
was-
having
took a long-
discussion, but you're
So I'm happy to move as
yeah,
it
you're
is.
happy to move it with some where the funding is coming from.
Yes.
Yeah, and Councillor Rosebaum, you still comfortable? Second that. Okay.
And I'm happy for you to bring that in as.
You're happy with the funding changes? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. Okay, so Councillor Schuler, would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, I do. Thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, yes.
There has been, I think there were very good presentations, and it is a bit disappointing, I suppose, for us on the back of this morning and the hardship we have at the moment, making some pretty tough decisions to get to a level that we've all agreed with. I suppose to start this talk, I think we wear different hats at different times, and we have a short-term hat which we're trying to solve now for next year's annual plan, and there is also the medium long-term hat we have that is around the future. And I think today is a good example of us needing to wear two different hats, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And this is why I am supportive of, and I'm talking particularly at the moment in regard to the tourism bar plenty requests, and was happy to move before I heard the options for different ways to fund, which of course I'm happy to support, as well as Councillor Crowther introduced to the group. I suppose if you look at our longer term hat and we look at the opportunities that we're trying to create for the city, and us having already agreed in concept to this regional brand, which is something that is wanted, where we believe will improve the city in terms of our global footprint. If we look at the incredible opportunities that are coming up with the 2028 T20 World Cup and the World Tri-Series in 2028, and these, if you count back and look back from a logistics point of view, and if the brand is to be part of Tauranga, that launch pad opportunity is incredible, and we do not want to miss it, in my mind. And so for me, the timing of this and this, if we call it a bridging year, to get us through to the long-term plan is also very important. In terms of, I suppose, the one thing I will throw out there as a lead-in to some other of my colleagues that may want to see the chicken before the egg in regards to what this brand, place brand will actually be. We don't know that. We have engaged, and we went through a very thorough process as a committee to engage the Guardians, who are very well respected in New Zealand and globally on the stage in place brand promotion and design, and within some fairly tight financial constraints as well. And they are delivering, and all the interactions we have had so far, they will. So I don't know what that will be, but there has been a huge amount of research gone into over a number of years to get us to this point. And so I suppose for the people that think they need to see it, I respect that, I understand that, but we also are fairly constrained in terms of our time, and if we can commit ourselves to the seed money was what we needed to do to get the brand stood up, and it's a little bit like Russ's talk about the aeroplane. We're after the succeed money now to get this going, to get it into our community, to make it part of Tauranga and the wider region, to really launch Tauranga to the future. So very happy to support these. I've spoken primarily or entirely on the Tourism Bay of Plenty requirement, because it is the big one. Very, very glad to have heard there are other options, but leave it where it is for now. Happy to hear other people's views, and I'll see if I need to speak later.
Councillor Roseboom, you want to speak now or reserve?
I'm happy to reserve.
Okay. Councillor Morris.
I want to give a shout out to Councillor Crowther and his use of the word beltway. I think that, we should come up with a term for Tauranga, which is the Takitimu Beltway. I think that's on point and accurate in what we should do. I'm comfortable with this, but I'm relying heavily on, I think it was Al, when it was shown up there, around other ways of funding this ask. Don't underestimate, at the end of long meetings, how easy it is to delegate difficult, nigh impossible requests of our executive and staff. So let's be careful, folks. And let's also, as we move through the Takitimu Beltway out into our community, make sure that we are minimising these requests now that we've made the decision that we did this morning.
Councillor Taylor, you look like you want to speak.
Yep, fully supportive of this. I think the options for where the money's coming from have been quite well discussed, and I quite agree with those. I would ask for an action to be added there that the kiosk that's currently in Wharf Street and isn't functioning be rounded up and put into the care of Tourism Bay of Plenty, perhaps, rather than the council.
We manage it.
So currently council manages it. It currently is not functioning. I'm suggesting it might be better if it's put into Tourism Bay of Plenty stable of kiosks, and they look at it going forward. It's just a suggestion, but if we can check that out.
Yeah. Councillor Curra.
In terms of TBOP requests, I sort of really struggle with it, in this day and age. We're talking about like traditional brand development and promotion of your product and your offer out there in the world. But boy, we're in it's not a new world. They've been around for how long? And on top of that, we've got AI as well. And so this idea of spending money to push, these brands and offerings out there versus the internet and social media, what is online, particularly with AI now, you can get everything you want. So I just can't relate to it. I just don't understand it, what we're talking about here. You can say, okay, Gemini, I've arrived at Tauranga. What can I do here? Gemini would know what you're all about, your age, what you enjoy, products you enjoy, and will say, this is where you go. Or if you're an event promoter, okay, I'm looking at, say, 6 concerts in New Zealand around this age demographic. I want a minimum audience size of whatever. Where can I go? And it will spit out to you, well, you go to this place, they've got venues of this size that can accommodate you. I just can't see the value in this. I really can't. I struggle with it. Even kiosks. Imagine how many people would walk past those kiosks that would have their mobile phone in the pocket, which would deliver exactly, if they asked, of the information that's on kiosks. Eyesights, I've been struggling for years around the value of eyesights. Really, I mean, hello. Sure, you might have 2% of the population that might need to go into an eyesight versus getting the information online. So, I think all of those TBOP requests I can't support because of that, particularly under this constrained environment. And as I mentioned before, around BVL, and suggesting that they're looking at cutting costs even down to people's incomes, which already they're struggling. Which pot we use, I just can't entertain that. If we're going to, in my opinion, waste money, it doesn't matter which pot it comes out of. It's all public funds, so I can't support it. If we can put it separately, I can support the BVL, but not the TBOP.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Yeah, Councillor Crowther.
I'll just add the clarity. I sort of had my go in the discussion, but for clarity, I mean, I see both aspects of that, and I do agree with Councillor Kurak in terms of when I look at the bang for buck with those numbers. If you take out the emergency content and weather alerts, which Loretta kind of said would be double ups probably, where people would at the same time be accessing it for other, they probably don't go first there to get a weather alert, you know, they probably don't go to a kiosk first. The app concerns me because so few people using that. So I personally, in this, you know, bearing in mind that the money is all public money, I'm probably a little bit in the middle, and I would like to go kind of halves, you know, the halfway measure for that, but it's not obviously the resolution, so I'd have to vote against those parts of it. But I would like all the TBOT ones to be taken separately so I could vote accordingly.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Mahay. I'm struggling a little bit as well. I think I do believe we should have all seen where the brand identity has got to. I think that would have been really useful. In terms of the cost of implementing that brand, again, it's a lot of money, and I sort of, when they put the table up that it's 450 of $1 million coming from TCC, but then actually we pay for 46% of Priority 1 and 63% of Tourism Bay of Plenty, so we're sort of paying ourselves or paying them to pay into this. So it's, and we're also being asked for funding from the University of Waikato. So that to me is it's a little bit cheeky, I guess, in terms of those numbers. I am not signing off years 2 and 3, and I think it's talking about it being a bridging gap. For me, it's not. It's a request for money for the annual plan 26-27, and I will need to see some really positive results of that prior to saying yes, we'll extend to year 2 and 3 in the annual plan. And I think it's and in terms of kiosks, I'm a bit like my colleague, Councillor Kurak. I think there was a number, 16,000 people go to the kiosk, which is, I think, what we said, attend a New Year's Eve function, and we're questioning whether we should do those. In terms of the kiosks at the Mount, possibly quite a number of those are cruise ship passengers who are coming and actually asking what's available in Rotorua and Hobbiton, rather than extending their stays in Tauranga. So I do think that it's a lot of money that in this constrained environment that we are putting to these. We do have to acknowledge as well that the money comes from somewhere, and if it's used out of the airport fund, it seems less of a burden, because it's we're not having to say we'll put rates up, but that means that fund isn't used somewhere else. So I think we have to be careful we're not just making money seem easier to get, but I do think it's a good suggestion, and it does make it easier, which I think it's a good thing. So I'm struggling with the amount of this from a tourism perspective. I absolutely want to have tourism in Tauranga and the region, but things have changed, and I think we didn't see anything that says that this is going to be done differently to ever it's been done before, and I think it's really important that that's a message. Oscar's still on. We will need to see that if this goes through, that it's been done differently, and that we've actually got some really measurable outcomes from a year of funding if this is successful for 26-27. And Bay Venues, I credit them on taking out some of their funding request. I think they are looking at under most stones, and I think we did say we want to have, we want to look after our assets, and I think it's sometimes those things they have come up. So I am supportive of the Bay Venue's smaller request than they'd previously had.
Is there any other discussion? Right, Councillor Roseboom, you want to have your talk?
Thank you. Yes, I will wrap up. Ever since we as a collective group made the decision not to give our CCOs a CPI allowance, I've been expecting a paper like this to come to us to fill up some funding shortfalls brought around by some unforeseen or unplanned things that were going to happen. So that's where the painting comes in. Around the BVL stuff, fully support. Pretty hard to give a CPI salary increase if you don't give them a CPI increase on their total budget. So that's where that sits. The tourism stuff, fully supportive. Branding is more than tourism. Branding is an identity for a region. It's an identity that the region gets behind, leverage their businesses off. I can see this logo or this branding image being used by the university to attract students, being used by our Polytech to attract students, used by Robotics Plus on their to identify where they've come from. Zespri on our kiwifruit boxes as it exports around the world, it could become a quality mark for Zespri. It's come from the Bay region. It identifies us as a region, so this branding mark will become what identifies us. When I first popped into the world in the Te Puke maternity home, we were a region of cows. We were a dairy farming province, and then we transitioned into fruit, kiwifruit and other. So we as a region don't have a definitive identity of who we are because we've changed and grown as we've matured. And I think this is an opportunity for us to define ourselves as a region. I've asked a lot of people, once they become aware of this branding process, around who we are. We're more than a beach, we're more than a harbour, we're more than import-export hub for the region. We need to identify ourselves and give ourselves an identity, and that identity will be used to attract events here, sports events in particular, but music events as well, and people will become renowned. That brand will be who we are. So I fully support all of this, and I hope in future that we choose not to not give our CCOs CPI increases so this sort of thing doesn't happen.
Councillor Schuller, you're going to wrap up?
I should have got him to move, and then I could have seconded. Very well said, Councillor Roseboom. I suppose what this also does, and it's important to think about, is it the certainty, and when we had our discussions around this in the committee, one of the things that was, there was a lot of talk about where does the money come from, and we've been presented with this table. One thing I was quite adamant on, and us in Western Bay are the key drivers of this as it stands right now. And we can say that when it becomes a brand and it gets equity value, people may pay to use it. We do not know. But where we sit right now to give certainty to get this into the world and start to create this wonderful vision and imagery of kiwi fruit and everything using this identity brand, it has to come from us in Western Bay. And that's why I'm fully supportive. I'll close it there. Thank you. Keen to see the vote.
Thank you. Just noting, we've just taken out those the airport funding to give. We've got it in the bottom resolution. It's just so staff can ensure that that's okay before locking them in. So they'll report back on those. So, but that's still the idea. They just want to have the flexibility to check that before we lock that in.
That makes a difference to me, though. Because if there's not ability to impact on rates, then I'm not able to support 450,000 being added to rates next year.
Yeah, we're confident that we can achieve this. We have previously part funded Tourism Bay of Plenty, a portion of, on the basis that airport travel, they generate a certain amount of airport travel, and so the funds were, the funds offset general rates, the contribution from the airport offset general rates, and I guess for us to pin the airport surplus on particular issues, there needs to be justification. There's greater justification for part funding the portion of Bay of Plenty, Tourism Bay of Plenty. We need to work this out so we're not actually funding something we shouldn't be. We're confident that we can achieve all of that funding and optimising it without actually, to a limit. It's just if we specifically pin it to something and it doesn't fit within the gambit, we're probably tying ourselves in a knot here. But we're absolutely confident that we can fund that money. It's just we'll need to report back. Is that Christine? I haven't explained it that well, but
Yeah, so we've done quite a lot of work on the application of airport surpluses to activities in the past. We've had legal advice, so you have to work within what the Airport Authorities Act allows you to use the funding for. So I think, as Marty says, I think as a package in total, it can be made to work. It's just which bits of expenditure and to what degree are the airport funds applied, and then managing the rates as part of that package. So you might change the way that you fund Tourism Bay of Plenty and put some rates, some airport contribution to that links to the international marketing, and put a portion of rates to brand for exactly the reason that Councillor Rosebaum talked about before. It's got a wider benefit and is not wholly attributable only to international and domestic travel. So I think as a package we could make it work, but we do just need to go away and do some analysis and bring that back.
And if it has an impact on rates, what do we do then? Like intentions, right?
this is low risk, given the fact that we've done this before.
Then why don't we put it in?
I think we have. We've covered it with the...
No, you haven't, because you've taken out specifically that we're going to use the airport fund, so...
So you could change resolution K to ask staff to consider a brought back on funding to limit the impact of rates and to apply airport service surpluses where appropriate, or to the extent possible.
I think what we're saying is the
limit is not strong enough for me.
the 93,000 plus the 450 must be must not have an impact on rates. So.
And in terms of timing, you're still going to adopt the annual plan in June, so we can do this work and report back, so that when you're coming to make your final decision, you'll have a report back on this that you can take into account in making that decision.
And so Tourism Bay of Plenty won't have the get-go, won't have a yes until we approve that final plan?
I would expect that would be the case, and it's always the case, because until you actually confirm your budget, and for the 26-27 year, it's not formally in place. So these are all resolutions that are leading up into.
So, but they've got to make some decisions by the 30th of June on some of this, so we're a little bit... Can we get this by May the 12th, by the next meeting, so that we can then say, yes, that's all fine, and Tourism Bay of Plenty can be advised?
Yeah, we can report back by then. I'm confident that we'll achieve that, and I think the resolution should limit the impact on rates. So I think it should staff consider and report back on funding to eliminate the impact on rates. Sorry to be a fly in the ointment here too, Your Worship.
No, that's all good.
The BVL conversation, if we're the suggestion I had earlier that any operating expenditure that we have within the organisation that could be attributed to, if you like, asset improvement or renewal, which could be in line with the funding that BVL, whether or not council was open to us initiating that prior to the end of the financial year and perhaps funding that work.
It means they can do it out of the TCC budget.
It just means that what may well have been a surplus, or there may be a greater priority. If we look at our assets across the entire family of organisations, it may be that there's a greater priority to fund BVLs than perhaps one of our assets, and I think that's just a practical way of dealing with that.
So shall we shall we apply airport or business as usual surpluses where appropriate?
No, I think we just report back on funding to eliminate the impact on rates. I think, and we're just sending a direction to apply airport. Yes, Councillor Crowther.
Just want to be clear, because of the wording now being eliminate the impact on rates, what is the default if this weren't happening for the surplus for the airport in terms of over a long period of time? Does it never have any impact on rates at all? If we, there was discussion at the Te Manawataki o Te Papa meeting in December about if we're not going to apply it, and I think I was a seconder to the motion to do it the way we did it, so I support it. But part of that discussion was that money could be utilised for all sorts of things for the benefit of the ratepayers, and I'm just a bit wary about putting into writing in a resolution that we will eliminate the impact on rates, because that is real money, and unless you can tell me that would never be used to substitute for rates, I don't think we should put that.
Goes into a surplus, does that?
It doesn't just sit there forever and a day in the surplus without an impact on either debt or on rates. I just want to be really clear on this, because this keeps coming back to sort of bite us in various ways, sometimes a nice bite and sometimes not. But I think we just need to be really clear, what does that money actually end up impacting?
Well, there's a time limit on this, and so I think that's, that this has a finite period, and sure, you could use those to fund other projects as well, but I guess it becomes a decision.
But wouldn't we be better just to cut to the chase and say that to report back on funding to cap the rates increase at 7.5%, which is really where we're trying to go with it, as far as I can see, and then we get rid of any double speak sort of on it.
To keep the
rates increased. To keep the rates at 7.5%. I quite like the word eliminate. And it's provided by our TCC. It's a budget.
I've heard Donald Trump use that.
All right, so now I'm happy to put this to the council. I'm going to take it in two parts.
Is that what you wanted, or do you want?
I think it's within it. So they've got the message, I hope. So if we just go up, we're going to take the Bay Venues bit in parts. So we're going to take A, B, C, and D together. Yeah, all of Bay Venues plus the receiving the report. All those in favour? Those against? Okay, that's carried, thank you. Now we're going to deal with the Tourism Bay of Plenty bit. So we're going to go, do you want to do this in parts, or we just... Yeah, okay. So we're going to take just E. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Crowther against. That's carried. Now we're going to take G and H. This is around the eyesight. All those in favour? Those against? Correct. Against, that is carried. And then we're going to take the digital wayfinding. So we've got I, K, we'll just take I and K. All those in favour? Those against? That's Councillor Kurak, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Morris and Councillor Crowther. That's carried. And now J, all those in favour? And those against? That's carried, thank you. All right, that ends that item. We've just got to do a 6 hour resolution, so all those in favour of, move to go past 6 hours. Councillor Taylor and Councillor Roseboom, all those in favour? Those against?
Just a point of clarification on that BVO and an internal transfer. There's no resolution. Do you want us to report back on that?
Yeah, report back.
Yeah, okay, cool,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, that's all good.
Yeah, we're going to have a...
That's your decision.
Yeah, so Councillor, so that is carried, thank you. So now we're just going to have a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 4:05. And we will start back with the 11.3 local waters done well. Okay, we're going back to 11.3 on page 71. We're now dealing with local waters done well, governance and recruitment. And Christine will speak to the report. In addition, there are attachments in the open agenda, and there is an attachment in publicly excluded agenda as well. So just for your note, I'll hand over to Christine. Thank you.
Given the time of day, I'll go for the slimline approach. So on the 2nd of April, you make a decision to proceed with the water organisation, and you made a decision to appoint a chief executive, Exhibit A. So now we're into the next stage, which is to take the calls that were made in terms of the water organisation joint committee that was made through the working group and put to council, and to give effect to those by formally establishing a joint committee. So this report is seeking to establish that joint committee and seeks for you to appoint. Western Bay is having a mirror report, so exactly the same as this on the 28th, so in a couple of days' time. So they're considering the same content. The report provides the option of alternates, so that if any one member is unable to be there, another member of council that you name, be a named person, can step in. We're also asking you to sign off the skills matrix, so that was worked through the joint working group as well, and to approve the process proceeding to recruit 3 of the 5 board members. So the thinking is that 3 would be what would be appropriate number of board members for the first year, and then once you get closer to actual start-up date, that you would then put your full complement of 5 board members in place. So if that's signed off, we'll work quite quickly to get that board in place. Those decisions of the actual appointments would come back to council, and we'd be working with the new committee in terms of that appointment process to get a recommendation to council.
Cool. Thank you. Is there any questions? Yeah.
Can I just clarify, where is the public excluded part of this?
The public excluded relates to the proposal that we've received from an external consultant for the
It's at
recruitment.
the, if you go to the public excluded, it's after the report. It doesn't actually have a, in the index, it doesn't actually have, if you just scroll through to the end of the report,
Yeah,
and then there's, yeah.
it's just a commercial proposal in respect of recruitment, so.
Yeah. So any questions for Christine? No questions? Just a point of clarification to a discussion yesterday. So it is a joint committee, therefore, as the mayor, I'd be an ex officio member on that committee. So, so as the mayor, and it's a joint committee, so therefore I'd be an ex officio member of the committee. Yeah.
Could I just ask for Christine's perspective on that in terms of if Mayor Denyer was on the committee, and then if we ended up with 4 people in the room, whether staff would feel that there could be any issues? Has that been raised with your colleagues at Western Bay?
It hasn't been raised with the colleagues, so we haven't had this conversation, but it has the potential for you to have 3 members of Western Bay, 4 from TCC, being if you appoint 3 that are not including the mayor, and then the mayor is under the Local Government Act, has rights to be ex officio, and then 3 from Tangata Whenua. But you also, one of the TCC, if the mayor wanted to participate and vote, one of the other TCC members could either abstain or not participate. So, I mean, there are other ways you can choose to manage that at the meeting if you wish to. Yeah.
So just a quick question on the alternates. Are they associated with the members or not? Or they just...
No, they don't have to be
Right.
assigned to
That's
someone.
much
So
better.
it can be, it's not like councillor B replaces councillor A,
right.
but you can have no more than the
Yeah,
3
that's fine,
plus
right.
the mayor at any one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I think that gives
I
that.
just want to clarify that the committee is non-binding, so they won't be voting. It's a consensus. So we just don't use words like voting in relation to the committee, because it's not.
You can ask for those to be recorded, and then that's the information that goes to the council in a very similar way to we did the joint working group where the views came forward either as being collectively agreed or different perspectives presented to the councils.
Right, so, no further questions? Yeah.
Just, we're trying to locate the public excluded, like it doesn't seem to be in the public excluded agenda.
I'll
that
tell
I
you
can
which
see.
page it is.
Yeah,
It is
okay.
there,
Okay.
because I've seen it. It's, so just scroll through till the report finishes, and it's straight after the report.
But which report?
The asset realisation report. So it's straight after that. Yeah. 78. Yeah. All right. Okay, have I got a mover?
I'm happy to move, but are we going to put the
Oh, sorry,
names in there
I'm sorry,
first?
let me, sorry, that's, so councillor, I believe councillor Crowther, councillor Roseboom, councillor Schuler, the reason being that they were continuing, was it last bit, was it councillor Rolleston rather than Baker? Oh, okay, yeah, cool. Was that
Are
was
we
correct?
going to appoint a
You're
chair?
happy to be an alternate? Okay, no, that's, so just some clarification, this group has been together, so this is 3 of our 4 that have been on the working group, and I think that continuity is good, obviously, and I've got the ability to be there in an ex officio capacity as well. So councillor Rolleston will move. To councillor
I'm
Taylor,
happy to
to
second.
second. So,
My only question is, are we going to appoint a chair from those 3?
I don't think we appoint a chair. Do we? I think the joint committee would appoint the chair, would they?
Yes, so you can either choose to have an independent chair, so the terms of reference and the decisions made to date provide that option, whether you want to trigger it at the beginning or you want to leave it for later. And if there is no independent chair appointed, then it's suggested that it be one of the councils would be the chair, and then the other council would provide the deputy chair, and that they would be turned on a cycle, and the cycle isn't set, but I mean sometimes we do it on yearly, sometimes we do it on a triennium, so that would be something that the committee, I would have thought at its first meeting, would have a conversation about and make a call. But the informal direction that you've given to date, or both councils, was that you probably wouldn't start with an independent chair, that you would use a chair being appointed by the councils.
Okay, so happy with that? Yep. All right, councillor Rolleston, councillor Taylor, do you want to talk to this?
Briefly, congratulations to those that have been successful in getting on there. Done a great job to get us here. A little bit disappointed I didn't make the cut, but I have aspirations. Aspirations. But no, in all seriousness, good mahi that's got us there. Good group going forward. I do suggest 28th is the meeting, I think, of Western Bay, that it's intended that our mayor is going to be ex officio. Just letting them know early that, again, it's up to them what they wish to do, but I think that's a good outcome from us. Welcome. Look forward to your new role and all the challenges and opportunities going forward. So that's all I'll say, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just echo the words that the previous subcommittee I think we had did a great job getting us to where we got the decision made the other week. I think an important turning point that now the decision's been made, you have a different role. The role now is to get ahead, get this thing rolling and operational by the end of middle of next year. So a slightly different but probably even more important role than you've had.
Yeah, no, I agree with the sentiments, and this group has worked hard and done a really good role. It is a change now, and this is setting up the organisation for success. So it is a very important role, and obviously, it is something that is a huge part of our business. So, as ex officio, I do expect to be involved at certain times, especially for the big decisions and be involved in that, because I do see the relevance and importance of this. However, I have a lot of confidence in the councillors that have got us to this point, and will allow them to go and continue on and do the job that they've done very well up until this date. So, yeah, Councillor Morris.
Thank you. Team, I appreciate it's late in the day, but I'm going to throw a spanner into the waterworks here. But I'm sure that it won't result in a blockage for very long. I support the resolutions apart from G, and the reason for that is I would like to draw your attention to the board skills matrix. And if you look on page 87 of your agenda in the board skills matrix, you'll see one of the areas of skill and expertise is around what a board member's genitalia is or who their grandfather was. Those, colleagues, are not areas of skill or expertise. Those are immutable characteristics that you don't acquire, you are born with them. And I have a principled objection to that, because this is not 2016, this is 2026. Can we stop the nonsense? We are appointing, through this matrix, a professional board that are there to deliver value for our people. And we have talked again about value for money and the cost of living crisis today. So that is what this matrix is tasked to do. It is not there to design a Health New Zealand poster. It is designed to appoint a professional board. So out of principle, and the fact that we live in 2026, not 2016, I cannot support G with that ridiculous row calling, this is stupid. I mean, I can't imagine back in 1991, I'm at Papamoa Primary, and I remember having a meeting with Tauranga City Council when I was aspiring to be a councillor back then, and they asked me, things like, what do you want to see in Papamoa? I couldn't imagine, 35 years later, sitting around this table and saying that somebody's genitalia is an area of skill or expertise. It's just crazy. I mean, too woke for me. Sorry, folks.
That's the diversity inclusion line that you...
Yeah, DEI, which becomes DIE.
Yep.
I'm just interested in a question, just to sort of fine-tune that discussion. Is it the first part, which is the gender, ethnicity, background, that you're talking about, or are you also talking about the diversity of cultural perspectives, professional expertise, etc.? In other words, how wide is your concern?
It is the first sentence, because those are immutable characteristics you are born with. You do not acquire them as skills. You can acquire the others as skills through your life and having a little bit of empathy.
So if we actually took out, so collectively the directors should reflect diversity of backgrounds and experience, is that fine? If we just took out the gender and ethnicity?
I'd be in favour of the proposition then. I would
so we just
wholeheartedly support it.
Well, how do people feel around the table about taking out gender and ethnicity?
Yeah, I definitely support Councillor Morris's comments, but we've already approved this at a previous meeting, and this has also been supported by our partners. So Western Bay supported this. So if we change it now, it's going to start another round of conversations between the three groups in the committee. But I'm happy to support that, but yeah,
I'm not sure we have approved it. We're approving it now.
Didn't this come past us on the 24th of March?
It did come through, it would have been included in the whole pack, the 24th of March, but that purpose of that meeting was more to identify if there were any concerns about whether or not you would proceed with the water organisation, noting that you would then go through and approve individual documents and processes, which is what the step is, to really do refinement. And, you know, if things are 95 or 98% there and you want to tweak some things, that's fine. I'll raise it with Western Bay so that when they have their meeting on the 28th, they're aware of the change that you've put through, and either they can agree with that, or if they don't, then we have to have a discussion. So that's fine.
Just a question to Councillor Morris. Is there a difference in your mind between should and must? Just reading that.
I don't want to get into semantics. I've done enough semantics and moving that we delete a sentence. It seems we've got the mic. This is the decision-making area right here. This may have been in our 1,400-page agenda, in which one of the issues we had with 1,400-page agendas was that things can slip through and then all of a sudden become the kaupapa.
So would you be happy to put an amendment around G with the removal of the words gender and ethnicity?
I'm happy to move it. I was not wanting to spend a lot of time discussing it, given that how triggered I was, and I've run out of water. So, yeah, I'll move it if there's a seconder.
But I think, because I guess collectively the directors should reflect a diversity of background and expertise and experience, which I think is reasonable. It's just taking out those two words, so gender, ethnicity. If we took out those.
I've been the token male in a workforce where we have 90% women, and it's just not pleasant.
So have we got a
Do you want me to talk to that?
have we got a seconder to the amendment? Yeah,
I'm happy to support that.
Okay, Councillor School, Deputy Mayor will second. Any discussion on this? Yeah, Councillor Correa.
I will support it because ultimately we're appointing on merit. And so when you consider those two factors, well, they're outside in terms of my scope of thinking around merit.
Okay, so any other discussion? Otherwise, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of this amendment of removal of those two words? Those against? Councillor Baker, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Rolliston. That is carried, so that now becomes part of a substantive. We'll get back to the substantive.
Excuse me, can we just clarify that's part of the director's matrix, so we know where the G is?
Oh, sorry, yeah. So it'll go now into, Councillor Crowther.
Just before I speak to it, I will do a little mini deviation of what Councillor Morris did, which was on page 82 under members. A question for Christine. Should it be in this document that it says 3 tangata whenua reps nominated by TW and appointed by TCC? I mean, I know it's sort of speaking to us in this meeting, but given the whole document seems to be council neutral, should that be just appointed by councils?
No, because it's appointed by us because we're the administrative body.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the only reason, so it's making it clear it's just in our role as an administrative agent. That's it, yeah.
Because of the technicality. Okay, right. Just to speak to it, I do think it'll be important, given how we've got it with the mayor being ex officio, that gets communicated promptly to Western Bay Plenty District Council well before their meeting, so they can discuss how they may wish to respond to that, because one of the options they have is to take the same approach, and I'm just guessing that the Mayor may wish to be part of this committee, but if he were, then he has two ways to do that, the same as Mahe does, or he has to be one of the three. And I think just for good relationships, we should give as much time as possible at staff and elected member level that both are notified fairly promptly if we go down that track. And yeah, apart from that, I have no other concerns, but I do want to address the issue that I appreciate my colleagues, in spite of being a lone vote against a resolution on the 2nd of April, to have the confidence to put me in there. So yeah, hopefully I can live up to expectations, or you can kick me off.
Yeah, Councillor Schuler.
Just following on from Councillor Crowther, just a question around the Mayor's role ex officio. Either communicating that to Western Bay, or if you should choose to attend, one of us could automatically choose to step aside. I just wonder, is that not a better way for us to say that's what we would intend to do? Because my concern is that we are, from a, and it might be a bit conspiracy theory to think that, but then that's an extra voice of ours around the table. I know there's no voting, I know there's a whole process, but just potentially we could add that to, or we could, as Councillor Crowther said, make sure we inform them, or we can, one of us could step aside if you choose to attend. Then we deal with it ourselves.
Yeah, I'm comfortable either way. I don't think it really makes any difference ultimately. But yeah, happy to communicate it to them. I think the key thing, just overall, we've got alternatives, so alternates. So we do need to ensure that we've always got our 3 people showing up, and we just got to get organised and communicate if you can't be there, that you inform one of the alternates so they can be prepared, and we want to be organised for this one because it is important. So, any other discussion on this? Yeah, Councillor Roseburn.
Yeah, I'll just finish up. So the intent of this is always going to have 3. We've always got substitutes. I'm more than happy to step aside if May joins the table. Remember, these are official committees under the Local Government Act, so all welcome to attend. We can all be in the room, we can all be listening, and depending on the subject being discussed, the chair of the day can give speaking rights to anyone who has a point to raise, and if you have a point at these meetings and you want it heard, let the chair know in advance, and I'm sure we'll give you a moment to speak. Remember, we're trying to set up a waters entity here, and we want it done properly, right process followed, and we don't want to miss anything. So if you think we've missed something, definitely raise it with us, so we can add it to the list of things to be discussed. As you've seen by the terms of reference, there's a lot of work to get through between now and 1st of July. And a couple of the first things will be this, obviously initiating the board, finalising a name for this entity, because we need a name so we can get a domain name so we can get moving on the establishment of our entity on the web. And also all the other vagaries about where we're going to live. But yeah, no, looking forward to this. Thank you very much for your support, and let's go.
Cool. All right, now, Councillor Rollison, you have any right of reply, or no? All right. Now I'm going to put the resolution to the council. It's a large resolution, but we're effectively appointing these people and agreeing to appoint some governors to this. That's 3. And using Jackson, Stone and Partners to do that. So all those in favour of the resolution? Those against? That is carried. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to 11.4, Council-Controlled Organisation Shareholder Feedback on Draft Statements of Intent. This is on page 89.
Can I just ask a question, Mayor? How long are we intending to go today? We've had a comment already from someone saying that we start making different decisions as we get later in the day, and I don't want to find we're in that situation. We've got quite a long way to go, so what are your intentions, please?
I would like to have finished by 6 at the latest. That's where we're at, and we'll see how much we can get done before then. Well, we won't go past. There we go. There's the guarantee. So now these obviously have been worked on by subgroups. So I'm happy to take the report as read. Obviously, there's a number of things here. But if there's any questions that anyone might have for the council, this is on page 80. For Jeremy or Caro, we're on page 89 of the agenda. Yes, Councillor Curran.
I was part of the group that looked at the Te Manawataki or Te Papa Limited statement of intent. And at the time, I didn't include what I'm sort of proposing today. I thought about it subsequent to the last time we met with the board, and we talked about the contract around delivery of the project, and I recall. Don't recall exactly what the question answer was, but it was around certainty of that contract price and not allowing for escalation due to inflation. My understanding was a locked-in price. And so I'd like to just add some words in there, and you can perhaps comment on it. Under financial management, and it says, ensure the program is properly costed with appropriate allowance for both cost escalation over the life of the projects and contingencies for variations during the life of the program. So I'm just wanting to add the words that the board achieves project delivery within budget and without reductions in scope or specification in any contracts to any contracts to meet that budget. So actually, I emailed through something earlier this morning which included at the bottom of that email that wording, if you can put it up on the screen. But just while you do that, perhaps I'll send it again. And it's about ensuring, because we're in an inflationary environment, particularly the building industry, and I don't want at a later point of time for the board to come to us and say, look, the builder is currently under real pressure to deliver, and can we scale back or change the spec or scope of the museum or in any other part of the project to try and fit within that budget. Claire, did you no? Okay. I just think I sent it again. You got it? So at the bottom of that, after reference to depreciation, so I've got also on Te Manawataki or Te Papa. Can we stick that up there? I'm just concerned that now this could happen, particularly moving forward in this environment. If it's a fixed price contract, and that doesn't include, inflation over that period of time when the contract is agreed to, there's potential. Yeah.
I think the current covers it. It's just saying ensures the program is properly costed with appropriate allowance for both cost escalation over the life of the projects and contingencies for variations during the life of the program. So it's really saying that you've taken those things into account, so you won't have them.
Yeah, but so that the contract price takes into account that.
Yeah.
But I'm suggesting that even though we're given that contract, that there is still a potential for that contractor to come back and say, look, under this very extraordinary environment here, I'd like to, so initially they'd go to the board before they'd come to us, and the board would come to us. That's the process. But I'm just saying to the board that I want these prices locked in. I don't want them to come back to us and suggest that we need extra dollars.
Well, they
to
are
complete
locked
the
in.
project.
That's what it's saying, that you've got to have the appropriate allowance for both cost escalation.
Yes, there are contracts, but then there's,
Well, a fixed price contract's a fixed price contract.
Not always in this environment.
yeah, it's quite extraordinary. And
To negotiate upwards.
when you're talking to public bodies, there's temptation there to say, look, I know there's a fixed price contract, but
Yeah, I guess my view is I'm not sure what problem we're trying to solve, but, yeah. Because it doesn't, your one doesn't, yeah, it's sort of saying a different thing, really.
okay, so the message I do want to get to the board is if they're approached by the contractor, just to say push back and say, no, this council won't accept any claim for additional costs.
Well,
Chief Executive is,
sorry.
has got a view.
And councillor, correct, so we got a business and you put a quote in to do something, gets accepted, and there's that quote, would you put a 5-year or a 2-year, this is valid for 2 years if you're doing a quote to paint someone's house or whatever? So, so you know exactly what they're doing, and they say, oh, look, so just a question, because I suppose there's a counterfactual to what you're proposing.
I think the Chief Executive has got a clarification.
Yeah, look, this is all locked in. All of that's taken account for, and I know how this board operate, and they won't budge. And if there was ever, for any reason, an approach that wanted a decision outside the terms of the contract, it would be escalated for whatever reason. But I just can't see that happening. Yeah.
So that would include a proposal to change the specification of a project to come within that same contract.
Well, the only people that can change the specifications or scope essentially is this group here. Yeah, and that's happened a wee bit over the last 6 months, so marginally.
Yeah. I guess I just don't see what problem we're trying to solve, but, yeah.
I do recall with the library community centre project, there was a change of spec on the facade.
I can share a story, but look, it's only a very short one, but Anne Tolley, and this is in relation to the Mayor's office and its current location, it was going to be located on level 7 above my office. Anyway, as the building was getting constructed, Anne came for a wander through with the construction crew, and she wasn't satisfied with the location of the office. She thought that the city deserved, and the Mayor deserved, the prime spot with the views out over the city as it was growing. And so on the basis of that, she asked for a variation and change of relocation. Anyway, the board refused to recommend that, and they basically were ultimately instructed. So I think it was a $70,000 variation. It's probably the only one on this building, but the board stood their ground. So I'm not sure whether you're happy with your office location, Your Worship, but...
We're in it so often.
All right.
So it's an indication of how they operate.
Yeah. So have we got any questions? Obviously, yeah, is there any support for changing that from Councillor Currat? Okay, if there doesn't seem to be support, thank you.
I understand it, but I do think with that
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Mahe. Just a question on page 91 on Tauranga Art Gallery Trust. We had a really positive meeting, I felt, with them, and down below we talk about the fact that if they, there may well be constraints because of funding and those sort of things. I just felt in 91 and that table that it's a little bit service level impacts are likely due to constrained funding, increased depreciation and city centre disruption. I thought that was a little bit too negative. I didn't hear that at the meeting, and they've obviously had feedback, and even down below, we need to be aware that that could happen, but I didn't think likely was the right word there. That's sort of looking as though they're saying they're not going to meet their expectations. It's in your table and point 10.
In the point, I'm just trying to go back to the SOI because this is effectively a summary of that document. So I'm just trying to work back.
But then if I go down to the background on page 93, sorry, not 93, where's Art Gallery? Yeah, 92. I just don't like the fact that we're saying it's likely they're going to reduce their levels of service. Because we felt that it was a pretty positive meeting and they were agile and recognised that they're planning ahead and things changed, but they had sort of plan Bs if they needed to, and so this just looked as though we've accepted that it's likely they'll reduce their levels of service, and I didn't think that was their view back to us or our acceptance of it.
So I guess what we're doing at the moment is we're talking about our summary of what they've written in the report as opposed to your feedback as a council to them. So is there something you want to add in the feedback?
So are we going to say that we're quite happy that the service level impacts are likely? Hey? But that's what I'm obviously, I'm getting tired, so I'm just making sure this is my understanding. But I just felt that it was positive, and this is suggesting it's not.
So the feedback is on pages 95 to 96.
Yeah, so what is table 10? What is that meant to be setting out?
So through His Worship, paragraph 10, that's just doing a summary of how aligned the draft statement of intent is with the letter of expectations. So with the Art Gallery Trust, yes, they doing their absolute best to provide a level of service to the visitors, the community, and also working closely with council. I suppose in terms of that service level impact, the city, it's kind of more to do with what's happening in the city centre in terms of the constructions that's happening. So they'll just work with staff and also the limited board to ensure that any kind of impact in the city centre is minimised as much as possible, and to ensure that they can just continue to provide the programs and the events that they've set out in their draft statement of intent going forward. That's my understanding of their statement of intent.
So I don't accept that service level impacts are likely. I would be happy to say recognising constrained funding, increased depreciation, city centre disruption are pressures that may require adjustments to programming. Because they did it as a positive, so it's just, I just think if we took out that first part of the sentence, because
Well, it's not, that's the report though.
I know, but that's still this is suggesting that what they've come back to us is that we're likely to have service level impacts, and I don't think that's acceptable. If that's what they're saying, then I don't want to accept it.
Okay, so you want an additional in the resolution.
Acknowledgement that the pressures of depreciation, constrained funding and city centre disruption may require adjustments, but
trying to look in their letter, I can't find where that come from, but. Right, while we're dealing with that, have we got any other questions around this? Yeah, Councillor Crowther.
I just had a question on the report and I don't think it's clear.
In terms of what you want
Yeah, sorry.
into the recommendation.
Oh, sorry, Jen, can you just...
Yeah, a couple of questions around BBL. One of them is their statement talks about delivering the Tauranga Netball Centre to Bay Park, but having just sort of recently got the sports facilities sort of planning, that doesn't seem to be happening this year necessarily. I don't want to say for sure either way because we haven't made a decision, but I'm just trying to get my head around why that is in there as a reason for kind of investing in BVL to a certain level. Is that just sort of a time lag that they thought it was happening for sure and put it in, or do we know that? And that's, I guess, to staff and to any of the group who met with BVL. No. Oh, anyway, while people are thinking if there is an answer. The other one is probably, I'll bring Craig into action here. He's looking a bit bored. The Otamotai pool. I know elected members have been, including, dare I say it, His Worship, have been faithfully quoting staff figures which show horrendous OPEX for Oates Pool. And I do want to rally to the defence of my local pool because I think we have got it wrong there, we being the consolidated TCC BVL grouping, because we're depreciating at 25% per year. And that's a lot of money for depreciation. So we're currently depreciating their total depreciation costs that I was provided $533,000. So I just struggle that we kind of carry on through in this next year. I think personally, I think we should refund some of that, and I mean, obviously that causes problems. I'm not really suggesting it, but I just think it should have, as soon as we made that decision, that should not be following through. So I just want to know if there's any way, and this is the question for Craig, like, is there any reason we couldn't just cut 300,000 to 400,000 out of the budget by agreeing not to have that as the life of the pool and just reducing the OPEX accordingly. So it wouldn't impact anything else in their operations, but it would save and be a far more accurate reflection of what I understand to be the situation with the pool.
I'll take that back to the team and we'll respond.
Councillor Rose.
I'll just make a comment in relation to the courts, that they were just conveying their enthusiasm to get on with those three projects. Well, some major support for the Memorial Park Aquatic Centre Netball Centre. Bay Venues was expressing their enthusiasm for us to get on and approve them so they can add them to the network.
I mean, I guess I'm enthusiastic about a whole lot of things, but I think we need to stick to funding what is going to happen and just making sure that everybody's on the same page with that. And in a statement of intent, like we're basically trying to, I believe, make this as good as it can be for our city. And I just think if we're not certain we're going to be doing it, I don't think they should be certain. And therefore, I mean, this is a draft document, isn't it? And waiting to...
So through His Worship, so the SOIs are the CCO's document. So if I understand it, Councillor Crowther, the netball centre question, you're asking why...
Well, I'm just suggesting that they might wish to, before they press publish or whatever, that they just align it with wherever we're at, because I presume it just would be better for everyone to know that one part of the council is not heading one way and the other another way in terms of timing, that's all.
So through, Jimmy, through His Worship, so in the BVL's or Bay Venue's draft statement of intent, they say that they're working with council to make sure that any future focus investment decisions, so they're not, they're going to make sure that they're aligned with council. They're not going to kind of be stepping out of line or doing anything not in sync with council and the decision that council is going to be making.
So, yeah, I think we're going to make some decisions, or we're going to assess that on the 12th of May again, so hopefully that, if there's a change, then they could reflect that after that date. Any other questions? Yeah, Councillor Crowther.
Just a quick question. Are we aware of whether Tourism by Plenty has included projected increases in revenue from retail sales and from the relocation for part of the year into the new facility?
No, I'm not aware of that, yeah.
Right, any other questions? Yep.
I just asked my colleague over there what he would replace on C3, Mount Hotpool's language to ensure community not unnecessarily concerned, or that any future decisions are not preempted. I took a wee while to understand what is community not unnecessarily concerned. How can anyone decide whether the community is concerned or not? You're our word person. On the resolution, on the recommendation. C3.
So through you, Mr Chair, the resolution is a summary of what's on page 95 under Mount Hotpools, which says Bay Venues. So the 95 will be the feedback which actually goes back, rather than putting the whole lot of this into the resolutions. We summarise the resolutions. Bay Venues should review the draft statement of intent to ensure there is no alarming or premature language regarding the unexpected closure of the Mount Hotpools. Full stop. New sentence. It is important that the community is not unnecessarily concerned or that any future decisions are not preempted. So that's the full context of what we're talking about. The resolution's a summary.
Doesn't make sense to me. The resolution doesn't make sense. I think that to ensure there's not, eh? Yeah, and uns.
Right, we've got a mover and seconder for this.
Nope.
Yeah, Councillor Roseboom, seconder. Accept the recommendations. Councillor Schuler. Any discussion on these? Oh, Deputy Mayor.
I just think we really need to look closely at that depreciation. Councillor Kurek's sent out a little think piece to add to our discussions on depreciation, but this is just a tangible chunk of money just sitting there waiting for us to say to our public, we're not going to take this much money from you this year. And there's a solid logic behind it, and I just think it was flawed logic in the first place myself, but that's a different matter.
I guess so, yeah, it depends, and Craig can come back to us around what they're depreciating. Yeah, obviously it's been there for a long time. Potentially it's the plant room, which wasn't fully depreciated and is about to get replaced, in which case it probably is reasonable that is depreciated at that rate.
No, I inquired about it, and so it was when the decision was made. So there's been historic precedent in Tauranga City Council. There was I can't quote it right in front of me, but where a facility was decided to end its life sooner than planned, and the argument there was to not increase depreciation. And then for this particular pool, it was decided to do the exact opposite, and so it was that there was the idea was that the pool would close, and therefore we will just run it out as fast as we can in terms of to extract the depreciation to get the debt from depreciation. I don't know, like basically to get the I can't remember why, but it was the deficit I think that they saw, which is just the build up of the operating costs. I think they were trying to claw that back. So, but it was definitely, it wasn't just some plant room that's going to go kaput. It was the actual pool itself, and the amount of upgrade. If you look at the Greton pool, and you look at the depreciation there, I mean, it had a massive amount of sunk costs that got lost in that upgrade, but that didn't get a change in its depreciation.
Okay, we'll get Craig to report back on that. Any other discussion around this resolution? Happy with the feedback? So therefore I'll put it to the council. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried, thank you. Now we'll move on to 11.6. This is the long-term plan, project plan, and this is on page 123. Jeremy and Josh, or is it Christine and Jeremy, to speak to the report. Note that there's page 7 of the supplementary agenda 2, which is the roadmap of the LTP.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this was report was on the last council agenda. We brought it back again this time round. So it's basically the roadmap for the LTP, which is a large multi-headed project and multi-tentacled project. So we've tried to summarise things down here to take you through effectively the next 18 months or next 15 months, what we're up to now. There's a bunch of milestones within there. I noticed the note in Stella was, we need to measure against this, absolutely right, but not all things will proceed as fast or as slow as expected. So the project will come and go a little bit. That's just the nature of these big projects, and we'll keep you informed as to where we're at with each of the elements. We'll come back to you on a regular basis. We've got monthly workshops now locked in between now and Christmas to discuss with you things in a workshop environment, and a lot of that will then come back into a formal council meeting. I guess the action from this one, most of this is kind of FYI, but the action is around looking at attachments 3 and 4. That's our schedule of things that have cropped up over the last 2, 3, 4 months, which have got LTP written all over them. Some of them have been raised by yourselves, some of them have been raised by staff, some of them are just things which are floating around. We put them down in one place. That list is almost certainly not complete, and you may well add to it in the next 20 minutes, and you may add to it in the next 2 months, and you'll probably end up adding to it in the next 6 months. But where we're at the moment is those are things which are on our radar. So if you're wondering where that conversation has got to that we raised 2 or 3 months ago, it's on this list.
Just a question, what's the process to add to that list, please?
You talk to us now, and we'll pass the resolutions. You'll pass the resolution adding something to attachment 3 or attachment 4.
So can we, so just on I think it's important that over the next 3 months that there is a process. Is it an email with a subject heading to make sure it goes on? Because I think I read these and yes, you've taken them from conversations, but zero-based budgeting isn't in here, and I think that's something we've absolutely talked about probably for a year. The stranded costs on waters isn't in here, and I think we've talked about that a few times. So I just want to have time to digest this, and because sorry I didn't find it in the melia of Stella papers, and I have got a Word document from Christine which is really useful. So Christine will probably share that with everyone. But it would be great to just know. Just to have who do we send it to? You, Jeremy? Just send it through. I mean, it's good to
get an understanding that it has sort of significant support, because otherwise we're getting individual ones from elected members, and we're trying to see if most of these have come from discussions where you've given us collectively or a majority view.
Does anyone disagree with having zero-based budgeting? Are we okay with that? Yes, thank you.
So we can add zero base. This is more around issues that are going to come back as issues rather than process. This list is, so you'll see it's sort of more of like things that would turn up as issues and options papers that are matters for you to decide. The one about stranded costs is incorporated into number 3, which is the organisation, form and operating model in the context of the establishment of the water organisation and other reforms. So we've made it a bit broader. So it is sitting in there. So we see this as a living document. Things will come on and off at your direction, and it'll keep coming back to you regularly, so you can see what's sitting on there, and that will then link into the work program, and you'll start to see these issues coming through. A bit in a similar way to how we work with the Council Forward Agenda, it's very similar, and in fact using that chairs group to pop this up through might be helpful as well.
Although I would suggest that even with the agenda briefings, which are great to have, it's mostly we just get told this is happening. We don't have, they're always a bit too short. We don't have very much time to think, to say, actually, when's this going to happen? So I would be very comfortable that there's a bit of extra words in here, so we have a little bit more, like on that 3, I thought was that covering the stranded overheads, and I wasn't sure, so I'd be very happy if the document did have some specific information, because I don't, and even when we talk about greenfields, we've said we probably aren't enabling greenfields necessarily, but intensification we are, so it's just a bit more context in here would be useful for me, please. Or else I'll have my own list and put my own context, but then it's not shared with everyone.
Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, just one little thing. On number 1, I'm just checking if everyone would be comfortable changing that to strategic review of potential for shared services and consolidated back office functions across the Bay of Plenty, because I know that we would have a natural affinity with Western Bay, but given the Mayor's sort of discussions in the past across the region looking at how to save money, I think, unless anyone objected, I would think that might be a better breadth of scope,
I think
of this.
Opens it up. I'd almost,
Waikato.
we're already working with Waikato, so, Councillor Baker.
Thanks, Jeremy and CJ team, those behind you getting us to this point. Questions, just so I don't assume what some of this languaging is meaning. For example, like, rates capping is a real popular thing at the moment and a potential reality. Where and when in the, so I'm looking at the time frame, the proposed high-level timeline at the moment. When and where are multiple scenarios drafted and presented for consideration? That's question 1.
So our intention is to use the first of those workshops, which is 7th of May from memory, to ask you collectively, effectively that's strategic direction stuff, what's important to you? So in our minds at the moment, we've just got 2 boxes, one of which is what do you want to deliver, and one of which is where are we at on the whole financial strategy, funding, rates levels, all that sort of thing. Because everything comes back to a combination of how much you want to raise finances for and what you want to achieve. And finding out where you're at on those 2 metrics will be part of that. So if the council collectively says, we see rates caps coming, we want to be at 4%, no more than in the future, then that gives us as an organisation a real framing for everything else we bring to you. If you actually say, we actually want to achieve quite a lot for the city and we know that rates are important, but bring us the achieve stuff first and we work out how much we can pay later on, that's a different framing to all those papers which come to you. So it's understanding collectively where a majority of the 10 are. That's a conversation which we want to provoke on the 7th of May.
So providing both those options at the same time isn't possible. It's either one. It's a one option preferred to set the framing.
It's a blend.
Okay.
But you can't be at 100% of what you want to achieve and 100% of not wanting to pay very much. I mean, there's got to be a trade-off somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Just human nature.
And the other question is, granted that 3 months perhaps, or 2 months is standard for consultation with community. But it just feels like with everything that's going on with with life, etc., and we just heard today from a couple of community reps around kind of effectively deliberative democracy processes, if we wanted to give more time to consult and connect with community, can we build that in? Can we build that into what's proposed, or is that not realistic with staff work?
So there's two elements to that. One is engaging early on stuff, and you could argue that you're doing that right at this moment with a 1,000-person survey, looking at some conversations about the LTP. So you've started that process. The consultation at the far end, once you've got a consultation document and all the supporting papers, which will come to hundreds of pages again, under the Act, the consultation at the end, that's a minimum of a month. You can go longer than a month, but you just have to be organised with your draft earlier. So at the moment, the time frame allows for a pretty serious draft of the numbers before Christmas, a little bit of a tweak early February, and go out to the community with your proposal, which is locked in, everything adds up, I's dotted, T's crossed, blah, blah, blah. In March through to April, hearings in May, deliberations end of May, beginning of June, adoption end of June. If you wanted to adopt for, say, 2 months of consultation of that final process, you need to nail down your version before Christmas. And that's only 8 months away.
Yes, Councillor Crowther.
I do worry a little bit, even though I know this will be addressed, but the fact we don't explicitly put a couple of what I would think of as perhaps the two potentially biggest emerging issues. One of them is, I'd say, around our biggest discretionary spend on essential services and infrastructure, which would be transport. And I think we've got in New Zealand, the Minister and others, experts and others, have said that we have a huge crisis, has been a word that's been used, or massive challenge, or impossible task is another phrase, to deliver. And I think we're a good microcosm of that, and I think, Christine, you've presented in years gone by on some of the challenge around that, and I think we're at a real, tricky point in terms of transport, that we haven't got good secured funding over the LTP period. We've got some at the next, year or two, we can see a way forward, but I think personally that would be a good thing to add in terms of, all the basics, but also public transport infrastructure, walking, cycling, everything, multimodal, etc. And the other one is whether it needs to be listed there as what could, affect the long-term plan as much as an annual plan, depending on how badly things go, which is the sort of the economic impacts of the global situation and all that, whether that needs to be sort of noted there, because we could be operating in various contexts. But I'm happy if that one's not included, if you think it's better to handle it differently.
So the economic one will come up in the environmental scan, and that'll be something that we'll cover at the very first workshop. Things like transport will come through sort of the activity area planning and the flow through of the strategies and the action investment plans. So we haven't put them in there. That'll be the same across every part of the business and come through, but you can add it specifically as well.
I would personally suggest we add it, because I think it's such a huge issue. It's our single biggest issue in terms of what the public rates as the number one issue, and it's our single biggest issue now for the residual council after the waters has gone in terms of expense on CapEx, and it's the single biggest funding challenge facing New Zealand for infrastructure, and we're right in the most awkward spot, which is we're not getting big funding like Auckland for big projects, and we're not like a rural centre. So I think we've got a huge challenge there, and I think it's a strategic issue that should be explicitly addressed probably.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther, but addressed how? What's in your thinking?
I'm just aware that as we work through this plan, we might not have ducks lined up in terms of the TSP, Transport System Operating Framework, public consultation, public transport plan, like the integration of all that. And I just think unless we have that explicitly in front of our eyes, that we could miss the opportunity to have a really solid a sort of framework and an integrated framework which includes public consultation on this, which has been put off for years and years. And I just think it's an emerging issue that we're not going to have time to do that, in my personal opinion, even though I hear from our neighbouring council that they can pull things off in time, but I see it as a really big issue.
If I can, Chairman, just, you mean potentially missing out on funding opportunities by not having your ducks in a row?
Yes, Councillor, I think that's a good summation, that my concern about public feedback is, and consultation is not just to go through what I believe is the right approach to do for an important issue with that significance to our city, which is one thing, but the urgency around it, and the reason I'm seeking to put it here as a sort of a subset of the I didn't want to get too much into the weeds with it, but that's an important component to get the public behind us, to say here's a plan backed by our public to then put in a really strong application to the government to fund it next, whenever it's going to be, May, June, July next year. And I just don't see us lining up our ducks at all in that regard. We can't even get a joint transport committee meeting. We've been waiting months.
Yeah, we're happy to make a note of that and include it for discussion.
Right, I think just back to Councillor Crowther's one, I think we just take out on that one, we just say, just finish it at functions. Yeah. So just take out the across the Western Bay of Plenty. Don't need to put Bay of Plenty, we'll just leave it open. It's, yeah, same thing. So we've got transport. Anything else that we're... No other emerging issues? No other questions about this? Happy.
There's two topics that are in the closed section of the issues that were not appropriate for open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so if there's, I think what we've heard, if there's any other emerging issues, bring them up at future council meetings or send them through and we can consider them as appropriate.
We also, oh, sorry, you go. No, so we did have a discussion on when some of the timing of what we want to look at to say what's our North Star, and we need to fit that in somewhere on the timeline, and just to know when, I think we're going to be able to get the strategic, what are we calling it? Environmental scan soon, because that should influence us, because I'm feeling that we need a discussion on what is our, I think your word North Star for the 10-year plan, and we need to do that. So I think there's a little bit more in the planning stuff that has to happen as well, even before we start doing the workshops on some of the issues we might have.
So through you, Mr. Chair, we should be able to have the environment scan with you this week.
Great. Thank you.
I've seen a first draft, Christine's seen a first draft, there's a little bit of tweaking, but it's
going to change every week, every day, so.
It's, please, when you read it, it is a moment in time, because every 3 months it'll be a completely different document.
Cool. Right, Councillor Correct.
Yes, it's around funding of depreciation on new vested assets where there's no debt associated with the asset. And I have sent something through to members this morning. We ran out of time. I was hoping to sort of socialise it with my colleagues to get a group understanding of what I'm talking about. And it's getting late, so I probably won't put the proposed resolution.
I think today. We can just put depreciation as it's a huge expense as part of us. So I think it can be a issue that we need to deal with, and yeah. So I think we just put. Yeah, depreciation.
Yeah, so yeah, you've got the information. I did send it to Craig, actually, copied in while I sent it to my colleagues. So it'd be nice to get feedback around, would this be a big chunk of work? Because, it's nice to have some scenarios that potentially might be no-go, but we need to start thinking in terms of some of the options going ahead, and in terms of our constraints around rates, and do we do the trade-off, debt rate sort of situation. I know we're in an inflation environment and that, but yeah, so you've got that, and it'd be nice to progress with this, saying, oh, Ricky, yep.
Yeah, this is very high on Catherine's agenda. Okay, so the depreciation and the way we're applying it, and whether it's prudent or not, whether it's appropriate. So, and the options.
I can count on some of those issues being, come back. Great.
Yep. Just we'll put the recommendations up. Have we got a mover and seconder for these? Yep, Councillor Baker will move. Seconder. Yep, Councillor Schuler. Any discussion on this? Any discussion anywhere? There's no discussion. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Now we're going to move on to 11.7, which is on page 50. This is a report for the adoption of trade waste bylaw for consultation. Okay, we've got Radley online. We've got Renica will welcome, Radley. You're in the hot seat apparently.
Okay, good afternoon. Right, yes, so this report's around our draft trade waste bylaw and hoping to go out for community consultation. I know it's been a long day, so if people are happy for me to take the report as read and answer questions.
Cool. Is there any questions on this one? Yes, Councillor Morris.
Thanks, Mayor. Brief question. Radley, thanks for staying up with us this evening. Just in terms of the limits in the bylaw, is that informed by the limits of some of our neighbouring councils, or are they more restrictive or less restrictive? Where does it sit? I know Rotorua Lakes have some more restrictive levels due to their receiving environment. So, yeah, where do we sit in Tauranga relative to, say, Hamilton?
Sure. Very similar. A lot of these bylaws are all, I guess their origins come from a template bylaw. So they tend to start out fairly similar, but have their own tweaks, as you say, dependent on things like the wastewater treatment plant's discharge limits, the types of treatment that they have, whether they have a large trade waste influx, I guess, into the plant that can alter what limits they're looking at, the size of their plants. If they've got a smaller plant, for example, like in Western Bay, they wouldn't be able to take the loading that a larger plant like Tamanga can take, and so that can alter their sort of the limits and the I guess the triggers that they have in their trade waste consent to go from permitted activities to conditional permits. So yes, they're all very similar. We're very similar to Hamilton, as well as Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, but they do. Each of them will have their differences. So, for example, Western Bay have got some lower limits on things like sulfates and sulfites because of the way that would impact their plants, whereas are a bit higher. Ours, we have some lower limits on metals, where we've got some requirements around where we send our biosolids, and so metals in the biosolids, for example, can cause issues. So, yep, yes, they're similar, but they also have their own varieties.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Roseboom.
Good evening and thanks for sticking around. On paragraph 11, page 152, staff feedback indicates updates the bylaw will potentially require some trade waste discharges, potentially driving up capital cost upgrades over time. Do we know what we're going to be requiring our customers to do and what's potential cost, and is there a regulatory fixed time frame going to be imposed?
So I'm guessing, is that around the PFAS or?
It
Sorry,
doesn't
I'm just trying
actually
to find it.
specify PFAS in the statement. Will
Can you just give me
require
the
new
paragraph
pre-treatment
again?
for some trade waste discharge. It doesn't specify PFAS in the statement.
For the
Yep.
PFAS issue, though, that is our leachate from the closed landfills.
Yes.
That would definitely require treatment. If we do that treatment, then the business community, by and large, would remain less affected. Radley, do you have more detail to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say the other part where we talk about pre-treatment would be for very small businesses, for example, like restaurants and wash bays that have what we call pre-treatment, but essentially are things like grease traps and wash bays, interceptors. They're I guess at the moment they're not, as part of our current trade waste bylaw, they don't have a permit. They're a permitted activity, but there is a cost associated with monitoring those businesses and their grease traps to make sure that we're not seeing an impact in the network or at the plants. So one of the proposals in the draft bylaw is that we have what we call a controlled activity. And this is essentially those businesses that require a pre-treatment before their discharge enters the network. There's some monitoring around that, there's some setup costs, and it's around trying to make sure that that's being accounted for by those businesses rather than falling on ratepayers. I think that's what we were.
And this is more relation to engineering trades, garages around oils and such. Is there going to be like a set limit for maximum spill sizes? Bunding's required, because that's where the cost comes for most businesses when they've got to start installing bunding. Are we going to look at that? Or, because I know they do a reasonable job, but every now and again things go wrong.
So when it comes to bunding and oil spills and that kind of thing, that falls generally within our pollution team. We have an industrial audit program where we go round and discuss things like that with businesses, what their plans are, what bunding they currently have, what we think would be required. It doesn't necessarily fall within the trade waste scope because they're not discharging that to our wastewater network, but certainly we have the ability to discuss that with businesses and come to an agreement around what's required. It's not just us that does that. Regional council, we work in partnership with the regional council around that as well. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Spree?
It does answer my question, thank you very much. And I'm assuming we're going to send a very well-worded letter to every affected business, personally inviting them to interact with us?
For sure. So we obviously have our current trade waste customers, but we also have, I guess, the businesses that we've interacted with over a large period of time, whether that be through, stormwater or wastewater, for either of those reasons. And so we'll be going out to as much of the community as we can around that. We have done some initial requests for put the feelers out in terms of what we were looking at. We didn't get a massive reply, but from what we did, that feedback was incorporated into what we've got already.
So that was my question about consultation. So how many responses would you expect to get? Are we talking 10 or 100 or 5?
I'd expect it to be over 100, given I guess one of the significant changes to the bylaw is around that controlled activity, and so we have a number of businesses that we're currently monitoring, but aren't actually charging anything for that we would expect to get a response from, because obviously they're going to be affected by this draft bylaw. So those that we have on file at the moment will definitely be getting information about this so that we can get a response from them.
So just in terms of this as a bylaw, would you suggest that this is seen as a service that Tauranga City Council provides by setting out the rules, or just compliance? Is this something that is seen negatively by the community, or yay, we've got somebody that's telling us what needs to happen and it's a pretty sensible process? How would you, in terms of, like, I'm just thinking about trust and confidence, are these consultations that people resent happening, or almost welcome because we do know rules have to be in place?
Nobody will like having to pay for a service that we so far have been provided for free, i.e. the monitoring of businesses that we know might fall under the proposed permitting system. Having said that, as a business, what I think you need the most in uncertain time is certainty. So I suspect that there will at least be a welcoming of the opportunity to provide input. We will go out for consultation as widely as we can with businesses we already know of, and there will of course be a public announcement. From that point forward, we can still decide to alter this trade waste bylaw. The decision today is to go out and actually ask the community what they think of this.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you. Just noting it's 3 minutes to 5:30. It's almost tea time. No, but serious question. The controlled discharge thing is quite interesting. And granted, we're just at the point around getting feedback, but perhaps to help stir deeper conversation and better engagement, are we looking at providing opportunity, is it opportunities? That's not the right word. Are we looking at providing the community with options as to where the new estimated revenue could go? Because my mind immediately goes to, well, that should go into environmental restoration and protection, but have we thought that far as to what this potential new revenue could be invested back into?
To some degree, that will go just to recover the cost. Radley, would you like to expand on that?
You pretty much nailed it. We're obviously we're resourcing that particular part at the moment as part of our, I guess, part of our budgets. The any revenue that's made from that would obviously just go to pay for that rather than anything new. But yeah.
Yep. No, I probably totally understand. I should have reframed my question, and feel free to take half an hour to respond to this one. But so, are we looking then to put any mechanisms in place through the charging of this thing to enhance, protect, or restore the environment as a result of the potential increase in pollutants? Or we're just monitoring it? Is that what we're doing?
It's cost recovery, and by introducing the bylaw, that in itself will enhance the environment, I'd suggest.
Yeah, effectively, there will be more control over what ends up in our environment through the monitoring that we can do of businesses that discharge trade waste. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is not about making money. It's around just, at the moment, we're monitoring, and all we're going to do is monitor with some rules, I guess, in place. So.
Yeah, understand, and I'm not in it to make money. I'm wanting just to make sure that the environment's taken care of in the process, and we're not just enabling it through a license to discharge.
Yeah.
So through the chair, if I can. So a good example of monitoring of, for example, grease traps. If we have grease traps that are not being cleaned out on a regular basis, that can lead to an increase in fat through the network, which can lead to wastewater overflows because of blockages. So by enabling this monitoring and making sure that businesses are keeping up with their maintenance of their grease traps, we're hopefully going to reduce the potential for blockages and wastewater overflows, and obviously protect the environment that way. Hope that gives you a good example.
That is, thank you.
Right, any other questions on this one? There's no other questions, then happy to look for a mover and seconder, which is receiving the report, noting the bylaw in attachment 1, and then approving the draft bylaw to go out for consultation, and delegating to the General Manager of Operations and Infrastructure to make minor edits and amendments. Yep. Thank you, councillor Roseboom. Deputy Mayor will second. Any discussion? All those in favour? Those against? That one is carried. Thank you very much. Right, we're going to skip over Papakainga, and we'll do that later. We're going to go to 11 on page 231. This will be the last public one, and we've got one. We're going to also miss out on the asset realisation reserve, and so we've only got one. We've got some minutes to approve and publicly excluded, and one appointment to make.
Are you going to do that?
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, that's in publicly excluded, isn't it?
No, it's an open.
Oh, it is an open. Okay. All right. All right. Oh, cool. That's even easier. 230. 231. It's just. Sorry, of the open agenda. Oh, is that, sorry, it's an attachment, isn't it? It's an attachment. No, it's a status update on actions from previous. 232, sorry. So we've got 11 closed since the last report, and some updates there. Is there any questions?
I just wanted to make a comment on the delegation authority manual, and we got a copy, a very large copy of that, and I understand there is a little project within your team, Marty, to look at simplifying that, because again, if we're looking at finance needing to make sure delegations have been followed, it seems a pretty unwieldy process. So I congratulate you on setting up a project looking at the delegated authority.
Right, is there any questions on this one, Councillor Crowther?
Sorry, but I'll use the opportunity to ask for an official response from staff as to the item which is on the bottom of page 234, where it says, on hold awaiting first 2026 meeting of Joint Transport Committee. Is there any chance at all in the wildest imagination that we could have a meeting of that still in it? Can't be in April now, we'd said at April at the latest, but could it be by May at the latest? Is there? And if so, what is the odds? Could you predict the odds, Marty?
Has this committee been formed?
Yeah, we're just waiting for TCC to set up a meeting.
Okay, well, leave that with me. We'll follow up, Renica, unless you've got an answer now. We'll follow up and we'll organise this for as soon as possible.
The other thing, I just, on 24th of March, so page 233, just in terms of the financial implications of local waters done well, the CEO is to bring a paper prior to December this year. When we think about the long-term planning timetable we just heard about, that's probably too late. So can we, December 26th is a bit too late probably to know what that 9 to 10 million stranded overheads are going to do. Can we bring that forward to October, September?
September is doable.
So just a change on that one if we can, please.
So just in relation to the Joint Transport Committee, we're just working with the partners to organise dates. So, sorry, Deputy Mayor.
No,
yeah.
I finished. I'd interrupt you.
All right, so no more questions on that one. So we're just receiving the report. I got a mover. Yep, Councillor Crowther, thank you. Councillor Schuler, thank you. We've got the second. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, then all those in favour? Those against? That one is Carried, thank you. So now we're going on to 11.13. This is appointment to Tangata Whenua TCC Committee. This is on supplementary agenda number 2. And it's page 7, I believe. Was it 7? 9, is it? 9.
And we just had
Sorry.
a slight change to the recommendation in your agenda. It's the correct name is Te Rangipo Mana Whenua Tauranga Moana.
Oh, yeah.
So we just
So,
changed that.
have we got any questions on this? This is around approving a change to membership on Tarangapu. So it's appointing Steve Takani to the Tangata Whenua Tauranga City Council Committee as a member of the Tauranga Moana Tangata Whenua Collective, replacing member Buddy Makairi.
And the correct title, sorry, it's Te Rangipo Mana Whenua or Tauranga Moana.
Okay, sorry.
That just
Yep.
came through earlier today.
So is there any, question?
Just for clarification, because like not being on the committee, can someone just clarify, is it that there are 2 members from each of the iwi, or is it just whatever the Rangipu wants in terms of the membership?
I can speak to that one, unless to him. My understanding is the Rangipu select and nominate the, so it's not necessarily from, although they might take that into account when they do their, it's up to them.
I think it's more hapu than iwi.
Yeah, I'm aware of the membership, but I just wondered in terms of whether there was, but that, yeah, that clarifies that, I think, so, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? I got a mover and seconder for that, if there's no questions. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Rolliston, any discussion? All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. So what we are going to do is we're just going to go into publicly excluded just to do the minutes, and then we're going to finish up. So I call for a mover and seconder to go into public excluded. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Crowther, thank you. All those in favour?